Is Colorado building guillotines? Surely you heard about the Democrat named Jax, the executive committee member in Colorado who spelled out the coming tactics for political revolution. He said, and this is his quote, "If you want to change this country with violence, there's only one way to do it: guillotines, killing random Nazis in the street." That's his quote. And that's his revolutionary strategy. The same strategy which kept the guillotines busy in Paris in the 18th century. Revolutionary genocide was in high gear, and irrational hatred was also in high gear. It was focused on a target demographic. They were not called Nazis, they were called bourgeoisie, working middle and upper class business owners and investors. The socialists labeled them as evil, only good for killing. And so they were rounded up and hauled to their place of execution, all because they lived in decent houses or wore decent clothes. And so do you see how this works? Enemies of the revolution are targeted by appearance and labeled enemies of the people, enemies of the state. And after the Red Terror began and blood began to flow in the streets, the revolutionaries were able to reorganize that terrorized population into something resembling a secular socialist state. Now, later on in French history, some Cambodian students learned how this worked when they traveled to France. They went to a socialistic education college in Paris in the 1950s, and then they went home to start the Cambodian Civil War in 1970. They had learned about Rousseau and Karl Marx and about the French genocide, and they copied it. Genocidal killings were part of the state-sponsored revolution, and the killers knew their targets, people set apart because of their appearance. In this case, in Cambodia, it could have been by racism or color of skin or the melanin count in your skin because everyone was the same color. So here in Cambodia, in this case, in the 1970s, it was anyone who wore eyeglasses. These people were said to have been defiled by Western education. They were literate, which means they were dangerous to the revolution, to the new revolutionary world. And so some 1.8 million innocent Cambodians were slaughtered by revolutionaries trained in hatred. And this pattern of revolutionary genocide has erupted in dozens of these socialist revolutions all over the world. The organizers do just what Jax is doing in Colorado: weaponize bitterness and envy and self-righteousness, and then take aim with all that hatred at a target. Jordan Peterson has explained how the Soviets did this to the farmers in the Ukraine. Peasants were told that the more successful peasants, the kulaks, were morally evil because the more food that they created, the less food other peasants would receive, which is a typical socialistic lie. And then so was the solution. It was also a typical socialistic lie. The kulak households would need to be destroyed for the Soviet Revolution to step in and then socialize all the farmland, making everything fair. That's what the ignorant, lazy peasants were told, and that's how they were mobilized to kill the productive peasants. And estimates go as high as 5 million kulaks who were starved or murdered. In other regions of the Soviet experiment, which were going on at the same time, middle-class, small business owners were a threat to the Soviet system, all that redistribution of wealth. So these productive Russian citizens were given the name of those French citizens who were targeted for genocide. They were called bourgeoisie, and the less productive were encouraged to seize their homes and move in and report the bourgeoisie to the secret police for punishment or execution. And so when this Colorado revolutionary Jax calls middle-class folks Nazis, he's choosing a hateful tag and then focusing hatred onto his target and then inciting murder of these typical white middle-class Colorado folks who won't join the mob to steal and kill and destroy. These are people who might disapprove of the revolution. Well, of course they disapprove of it. And they might become counter-revolutionaries. And so that's why Jax believes they need to be either terrorized into submission or removed from the scene. And this guy is right about something. This is how you change a country with violence. You kill the peaceful and productive and install a tyranny. But maybe this time, the peaceful will not let that happen.